Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a place where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. And so thank you for joining us, whether, again, you're in your living room, in your car, at work. You're supposed to be working on those TPS reports. You're doing this. We're thankful you are. Thank you again for just joining us here. We want to, again, remind you, if you'd like to donate, be a part of this, walk with us in this journey, please consider donating to the link below. And as always, please subscribe to this channel. Share it with whoever you can. We think the message of Jesus is so applicable, especially now. So we've been moving through the series of A New Way to Be Human. We're looking at the Sermon on the Mount. And so we've moved through chapter 5 and we've gone verse by verse. And now we're stepping into chapter 6, verse by verse. And we're looking at the deep cultural understanding of what Jesus meant when he talked about how to be a better human, how to be fully human, how to be fully alive in this world right here, right now. And so the teachings of Jesus, this Sermon on the Mount, it actually is a deeper critique into the law. And it has these interesting connections to Moses and the Torah. So again, Jesus walks the wilderness 40 days. Jesus has the same temptations Moses did in the wilderness when he was there 40 years, right, with Israel. All of these interesting connections to Jesus and Moses, Jesus and David, all of these connections to these deeper patriarchal people of the past. Jesus now embodies that. And he's sharing this is what it looks like now for first century people living in a time of chaos, brokenness. This is how we walk and live and breathe Torah. This is how we learn to be completely divinely human. And so these teachings, again, deeper critique on the law, but really a teaching on how to live shalom, where nothing's missing, nothing's broken. And so as a people during that first century, 70 AD, just post, they lost their temple. They watched as thousands of their people were brutally murdered right before their eyes. Anyone who wasn't able to get to the hills was killed. And so we understand these people are hurting. They're asking the deeper question, where is God? They're saying, what happens to our tribe? Our temple was destroyed. The place where God resides. What happens to us? And Jesus' response is so beautiful. And again, I would argue it's so applicable again for today, where our religious structures are just failing, where many people in our culture, they're saying, we don't want church anymore. We don't want religion. And so in a place where religion and the temple is falling, Jesus' message is this: you are the church. You are the temple. You are the place where the divine, where holiness, where righteousness happens. And everywhere you go, you bring life. Beautiful. I just gave you everything you need to know. We don't need any more. But I'm going to keep going. So we're going to talk today, and we're going to step into the next teaching, which is about fasting. So we looked at giving to the poor, the outward. We looked at prayer, which is all about the soul. Today, we're going to look at the body, the very physical piece of us. We're going to look at that concept of fasting. So here's what Jesus says in Matthew 6:16 through 18. It reads like this: "And when you fast, do not be sad-faced like the hypocrites." And again, we understand the word hypocrites means the actors, the people doing something to be seen, not someone who does one thing but then does the other, says one thing, does the other. That's not a hypocrite, at least for first century people. First century hypocrites were people who basically did things so people would see them doing it. It's hypocrites would be pretty much most of my Facebook feed, right? That is a hypocrite in first century time period. People who are doing things to be seen. So don't fast like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so that they appear to be fasting to men. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward. Again, you get your reward. You get the fame. You get people looking at you. But what about the deeper impact on the body, the soul, the spirit, community? What about that? You miss the reward. And we'll get into that deeper. But you, when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting. Hide your fast. but to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly. This idea of fasting in our culture, when we read about fasting, we often mix it with diet, don't we? You see all these different like ads about intermittent fasting. Eat only 2 meals a day and take the other 16 hours to fast. Oftentimes, people in our culture, we're not fasting for the right reasons. Fasting can have like interesting effects on the body. Fasting can do interesting things for the diet. But what about the deeper implications of the body and the soul? That's what biblical fasting was basically aiming at. Something way deeper, something far bigger. And so when you look at the Old Testament, the idea of fasting, the Israelites, they fasted for a specific reason. Not to get skinny, right? But something way bigger. So read this with me. This rather is the fasting that I wish. Again, this is Isaiah. Releasing those bound unjustly, untying the thongs of yoke, setting free the oppressed, breaking every yoke, sharing your bread with the hungry, sheltering the oppressed and the homeless, clothing the naked when you see them, and not turning your back on your own. So again, notice that. Fasting should actually bring freedom. And what does the freedom do for you according to Isaiah? Fasting is going to enable you to do good in the world. It's going to enable you, like we talked about the other day, to have the open palm, the open hand. Fasting, at the end of a fast, you should not be exhausted. You should have more energy. You should be more alive. And if you're not, you have not been doing fasting like the Jews did. You've been doing something very different. Fasting should energize you and enable you to do the good in the world that righteousness, that salvation, healing gives you. Interesting, right? Let's flip it around. Richard Foster, he wrote this beautiful book called Celebration of the Discipline, and he writes this about fasting. The central idea in fasting is the voluntary denial of an otherwise normal function for the sake of intense spiritual activity. There is nothing wrong with any normal life functions. Again, food's not bad, right? These things that we fast from, they're not bad, but we fast from them for a specific reason, right? We don't demonize the things. We do it for a specific reason. And so it is simply there are times when we set them aside in order to concentrate. So notice that fasting is about learning to concentrate. And once I'm able to concentrate on certain things, that's when, again, anyone who knows this, anyone who's ever been a part of like a meeting where you're trying to figure out what's our mission, what's our motto. When you get the mission, when you get the motto, your whole team comes alive because now you have direction. Now you know why you do the things you do, and you begin doing the thing. That's what fasting does for us. It enables us to concentrate and figure out what is the goal, what's the motto, what's the purpose behind the thing. And when we get it, we're freed to go do amazing things in the world. That's the idea. So when view fasting from this perspective, we can see its resemblance as well as its broader dimensions. Again, it's reasonable. Reasonableness. I love that word. It's reasonable. It makes sense. That's why you fast. So again, fasting is an inward practice enabling us to view the importance of people, places, and the things that offer us freedom. Yeah, got it. So watch this now. Let's go verse by verse. Notice this. When you fast, right? It's not, you should maybe consider fasting. It might be a good thing for you, right? Think about fasting. No, it's so deeply ingrained in the Jewish culture that the idea here is you're going to fast because it's a spiritual function. Just as important as giving to community, just as important as prayer, fasting should be a part of your everyday life. Fasting should be something you do in order to help you focus and concentrate on how to be more and more human. That we don't talk about very often, do we? Fasting kind of gets tossed under because it sometimes is uncomfortable. but fasting is actually something we should be doing. And so for the hypocrites, the Pharisees, the religious people, they would oftentimes fast in order to be seen. One writer says first century Pharisees would often daze for weeks on water, making public displays of their piety. It was religious one-upmanship. So basically, these Pharisees, these hypocrites, they would basically like say, "Well, I fasted for 4 days." And then you'd have like so-and-so Jebediah stand up, "Well, I did 10 days, And again, one-upmanship. It was all about me, me, me. And if it's all about me, 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 if it's all about being seen, being an actor on a stage, then I will never get to the point where I can concentrate and get that perspective of, oh, this is the goal. This is the motto. This is the vision. This is what I should be doing in the world. You'll never get there. You won't get the reward, the beautiful spiritual reward. You'll get a different reward. You'll get to be seen by people, which again, curse and blessing. Anyone who's ever posted anything on Facebook knows you post something funny, you also get a bunch of trolls. Yeah, you get your reward. The beautiful reward of fasting, the spiritual one, is I can begin to concentrate and see the deeper perspective of where I should be heading. Fasting does that for us. Do not be sad-faced like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so they appear to be fasting to men. Fasting should bring one closer to joy, not sadness, not agony. Yeah, fasting should bring you victory. It should bring you joy. It should bring you peace, not this disfigured like, oh, I haven't eaten for days. Missing the point. Let's keep going. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to the Father who is in the secret place. Again, fasting should not be a show. It shouldn't be a show. I have attended and been in way more communities I can remember that oftentimes we're doing the Daniel diet. We're doing the fast, we're doing this and that. And all you heard from these people was how hard it was and this and this and this. You rarely had like the person at the end of the week say, it was awesome. I have more energy. I'm more excited. I know where my life is heading now. You rarely had those people speak up. Most of the time, it was just all about me and how hard it was and blah, blah, blah. But Jesus says, no. Do everyday things. Wash your face. Don't look like you're in agony. This is not about a public display. It's about an inward journey. Let the inward journey happen and let the outward things, they are what they are. But focus on the inward journey because that's where spiritual happens. It's in the body. So to move on, and your Father who also sees in secret shall reward you openly. Again, the reward of fasting is again less about losing the weight. It's less about getting recognition from friends and family and church community. The beautiful reward of fasting is that you begin to see the direction your inward spiritual journey should be headed. You see the benchmarks. You begin to understand the deeper implications of where you're going. You can actually write out your purpose, and you can begin heading there now because everything has been open to you. That's the beauty of fasting. It was never about a diet. It was never about a performance. It was never about getting recognition. It was all about the inward journey and the direction fasting can offer you. And so in the words of Jesus, fasting should bring freedom. Fasting should bring direction. And it's just another way in which we experience shalom. And so, important question, how do we do it? How do we do this thing? How do we fast? So I'm going to ask this of you, anyone listening. I would love to have you do a fast. Practice a fast. And so I'm going to give you some really interesting ways to do this. And you can choose to fast from food, electronics, Facebook, maybe certain people in your life. I'm going to give you some ideas. And what I'd love to have you do is do the fast. And then email me at tonywerfel@gmail.com and let me know how the fast went. Because I'm dying to hear how you were able to apply this. Because again, if we can't apply it, it's not really worth talking about, is it? But I think the teachings of Jesus are applicable. So let's go there. Number one, do what things I am dependent. I think this is what it meant. What are the things I'm dependent on? Take time and ask yourself, what things am I like completely dependent on? Am I always on my phone? Right? I had an individual walk into my home looking for their kid. They were playing in our backyard. Didn't even say hi. Just like had the phone in hand. Hi. Walked past me talking. Didn't even like say hi to his kid. And I kept thinking, that dude is attached to his phone. What would happen if you put the phone down? You said, every day I'm going to fast from my phone for like 3 hours. I'm just not even going to look at it. Or maybe like social media, whatever. Take time and figure out, what am I spending the majority of my time on? Is it worthy of my time? And when you get that, maybe you can say, well, yeah, I think I'm going to fast from that thing. Figure it out. What is the thing? Next, write what life might look like if you weren't a slave to it. Yeah? Interesting, right? Dessert. Maybe dessert. Like, you cannot go a meal without having your wine or your chocolate bar, whatever it is. Like, what is the thing? Right? And again, we're not getting rid of it because it's bad. We're removing it in order to get clear perspective. And so where would your time go if you put that one thing away for a little while? What things may open up as a result? Because you're putting that thing aside temporarily. Next one. Next, after you've done those steps, practice the fast. Actually fast from the thing. So food, obviously, you're dependent on that. But again, maybe it's social media, whatever it is, start the fast. Choose not to participate in that thing for whatever the time period is, but begin the fast. Maybe you decide, I'm going to fast from food for one day. I'm going to fast from coffee. Holy crap, really? Yeah, maybe coffee for you. Whatever the thing is, social media. Man, I have come alive when I've stepped away from social media. Whatever the thing is, choose to start the fast and do it. Put the thing to the side. After the fast, again, take that fast 1 to 5 days, whatever it is. After the fast, here's what you do. You don't just like, I'm done. That was good. Whatever, and tell everybody about it. Take time after the fast alone. Pull a notebook up or maybe your laptop, whatever it is, unless you're fasting from your laptop. But take a moment, and what worked for me, and I know so many others, is a time of reflection. Take time and just think back on the fast. Were you anxious when you were away from that thing? Were you angry? Did you have less or more time for the things you enjoy? What emotions came out? What kind of time did you have? What things you begin to put your time on when you weren't doing that? Just reflect on it. And when you reflect on it, write those thoughts down. And here's the beauty of it. When you do that, you're going to see some amazing things out of this journey. It should free you and enable you to be a better and better version of you. That's what fasting can offer us. And so again, the idea here is, if you want to live these principles, if you want to live a life more abundantly, if you want to be free, then we learn how to give, we learn how to pray, and we learn how to fast. Fasting can open up some really beautiful things for you and your journey and your own mission. It's going to open all of it up for you. So I would beg you today to consider doing this fast. I'm going to be doing it as well. And so again, let me know how it goes. And so in the words of Jesus, summing it up, fasting should bring freedom. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today as this conversation continues to get bigger and bigger. I think this Sermon on the Mount is just one of the greatest things Jesus gave us. It's beautiful. And so as we continue going down this road, please consider donating to ethos-church.org/donate. Please continue supporting this. Again, tax deductible. Support it. Help us continue sharing these messages. We think they are worth sharing. And if you want to continue moving with us in this direction, if you want to have these conversations live, please consider joining us the 1st and the 3rd of every month online. We have these conversations. We're talking about deconstruction, literalism versus metaphor, all of it. We talk about all of it. Nothing is too holy to discuss. It's so fun. We meet at 11 a.m. West Coast time. And if you want to join us, please email me at tonywerfel@gmail.com. And as always, please consider subscribing to this channel. We love you all. Thank you so much for joining us. And we can't wait to continue delving into this series, A New Way to Be Human. Take care, everyone. Love you.